Hello, welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here today. My name is Felicia, and this is our Taking Back Friday live stream meetup that we do once a month, every month on the second Friday of every month. I have lots and lots of things to share with you guys today, but basically what we do is every month we come here and we chat about all the things that are going on behind the scenes at SweetGeorgia, things that are on my desk, things that we've been doing and launching inside the School of SweetGeorgia as well. So I have lots and lots of things to share with you guys today. There's a lot of things on my desk that I have to show you. So first what I would do is let's have a look and I'll show you kind of what we're going to talk about today. And so let me see if I can get that. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is the stuff that is on our list that we want to talk about today. There's some stuff that's on my table that has arrived in the past couple of weeks, and we're going to talk a little bit about holiday gifts. We are going to do the secret stash reveal that we do every month, and the secret stash is our monthly yarn and color subscription box that comes every month. And we are also going to talk a little bit about the school and the big thing that we announced last Friday, which is the Winterful Weave Along, the Winterful Wall, Winterful Wall, the Winterful Weave Along. So that's what we have to talk about. So let me see if I can get here. So basically in the past couple of weeks, I've received a whole bunch of mail. There's a whole bunch of stuff on my table and a bunch of things that I can share with you. Some things I can't share with you yet. I was just checking my email this morning. There is one thing that I want to share with you guys. Maybe I'll be able to show you next week at some point in time. But right now, I have some other things that I can share with you. The first thing is things that you could think about as maybe potential holiday gift kind of ideas, things that are sort of kind of the time of year. This is one of the first things that I have on my list. This is the first thing that arrived on my desk. This is the 2025 planner that is created by Line magazine, so Line Publishing. They've come out with their new planner. This is a craft planner for 2025. And let me see if I can show you the inside of this. This is kind of what it looks like. Weekly planner built for crafters. And then, you know, as we go in here, there's all of your dates in here. It's a weekly planner, so everything is listed out like so for the week. And then in here in the red, you can see all of the fiber festivals that are planned for the year. So like I was flipping through the other day and I found Fibres West is going to happen in BC, in Surrey, fibreswest.com, March 21. And so then I flipped over to the other big event that we have as well. And so September 26th is the weekend of Knit City, is also in here, knitsocial.ca. So September has that. We are listed in here as well. Oh, there we are as well. And so it's a nice sort of planner if you plan things by week, and you can kind of mark out what time things are going to happen, tasks, notes on the side and stuff like that here. But it's also sort of designed for crafters in the way that there are lists of all of the fiber events that are happening throughout the year. And then there's a bunch of other helpful things that could be used by knitters. And so you have your needle sizes here, conversions for needle sizes, you have yarn weights here, a couple of techniques, and a couple of rulers, just lots of really helpful little things. And so if you're thinking about finding gifts for maybe a knitter or somebody who makes things, a crafter, then this is one of the things that you might consider. This is the 2025 planner from Lina. So this has been on my desk. And then another thing that showed up on my desk is a new book from Fashionary. Now, I haven't really opened this up because I was really excited about it and I wanted to kind of share it with you as I open it. But this is oh, I'm very excited about this. So in any case, let's just open this because I've been waiting for a number of weeks actually to open it. So this is, it goes like this. And they've included a little card here, Fashionary thank you card. So that is great. And then this is something called the Knitwear Manual. So it's still wrapped in plastic. I'm just gonna quickly open it up so we can see what's going on inside. Okay, very exciting. So this is the Knitwear Manual, and the reason why I was so excited about it is because there's a lot of information in here about sort of machine knitting. And you can see here, it starts off with this flow chart of knitwear manufacturing. This is the spectrum of fiber arts that we're very often talking about. You know, we're talking about taking fiber, dyeing the fiber, spinning it into yarn, then it either the yarn gets dyed and then made into something that's knit, or the yarn immediately gets knit into something and then becomes fabric. Fabric can become yardage, could become panels that are then sewn together, could become a seamless garment, could become hand knit project down here, and then all of the other things that have to happen in order for that knitted garment to become a final product. I think that I'm really, really excited about this. You can see there's information about fiber classifications. What does wool look like? What does silk look like versus what does the camel look like? Hemp, ramie, all of that kind of stuff in here. So there's fiber, going into more detail about the different kinds of fiber. And then in here, we are jumping into how is yarn actually made. So knitting yarn, where does that come from? How is it spun? How are the different ways? I think that the neat thing about this book is just the illustrations make it really clear and understandable what's going on here. It's not necessarily just for hand makers or hand spinners, hand creators. There's very much information about how industry handles all of this as well, but it also describes things very clearly, like what's a plied yarn versus what's a cabled yarn, what's a single yarn, what is roving, how is yarn structured. This is a conversation about yarn counts. That's going to be really helpful, especially for a lot of weavers. Yarn finishing, types of yarn, and then here we go into knitting. So here we have like some symbols for hand knitting that show up on charts and things like that. But there's also more illustrations. I feel like this also kind of pulls together a lot of information about not just hand knitting, but also machine knitting. So you can see that this yarn path diagram is kind of showing how the needles are formed on sort of on a knitting machine. So there's lots and lots of information in here. So I was super excited about opening this book up to share with you. And I haven't really had a chance to go through all of this, but I feel like this is going to become my bedside reading for for some time, and just like really excited to go through all of this. And near the end of it, you can see there's actually even more patterns. So these are all they're sort of color work patterns. They're calling them jacquard patterns. And these could be done on a machine. They could be done by hand. There's a lot of different ways that you could work with this. There's also very complicated lace panels. There's lace charts, lace diagrams. There's a lot of stuff in here. And I think it's all about this idea of creating fabric and then making projects out of it, making final products out of it, and all the different ways that it could be done. So this is going to be fantastic. If you are at all interested, even in knitwear design, not just for hand knitting, but maybe even converting things to machine or all sorts of different things, just different ways of making garments, I think that this is a different approach than what we have seen before in other kind of knitting books. And so this could be something really fun to play with. So this is from Fashionary. So it's fashionary.org, and you'll be able to find the book there. And so thank you guys for sending me a copy of that to have a look through. And I'm thinking this is going to be super useful. Thank you. The next book that I have on my desk here is one that maybe you guys will be very interested in as well. So this is designed for hand knitters. This is by Tanis Gray. Tanis has written a number of wonderful, wonderful books with beautiful patterns, and she's done a number of books that are really, really fun. Like we did one, we've seen so many. seen a lot of them. There's the Lord of the Rings book is the one that I have in my attic right now, also by Tanis, and so that is full of wonderful patterns as well. But this one is themed after the Gilmore Girls, and so if you like the TV show, if you watched the TV show, if you're a follower and a fan of that TV show, then you might be a fan of this book as well. So I'm going to just flip through some of the patterns that you might see in this book. There's 31 patterns altogether in here. And you can see some are designed by different designers. Some are designed by Tanis here. There's lots of fun things in here. So yeah, lots and lots of projects. 31 projects in here. They are so colorful and so pretty. So if you are thinking about you need something else to knit, or you want to flip through something else, or you have a friend who happened to really like the Gilmore Girls and you think that this might be a great holiday gift for them as well, this is available now. It just launched October 22nd, so just a couple of weeks ago. And so that is all available as well. Now, what we have here is I'm going to give away this copy of the book, the Gilmore Girls, the official knitting book. And so if you want to enter the giveaway for this book, I don't have the link typed out for you, but it is going to be sweetgeorgiayarns.com/Gilmore Girls. And that will get you to the form to go fill in, and then you can enter the draw for this book. Yes, Elena saying, love the Fellowship of the Knits book. That's what it was called. I could see the picture of it, the cover. I could see it in my head, but I just couldn't remember the exact book name. Yes, so thank you. So Bridget's just put the link to the giveaway in the chat there for you. So if you want to enter that, we are going to do the giveaway and we'll do the draw at the end of this month. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much to Tanis for sharing that with us, and then for also including our yarn in the book. There's a mohair silk DK project in here as well. So those were kind of some of the things that were on my list about things that could be gifted to people if you're thinking about sort of preparing holiday gifts. Right now, I'm collecting all of that information as well for my family and all this kind of stuff about what we're going to do for holiday gifts as they come up. But I wanted to share with you some other things that we had sort of put together. And so this is, thank you to Bridget for preparing all of this, but she's actually created a number of gift, what do we call them? It's like a gift guide, but it's like an online gift guide. So you can basically go to our shop. It's shop.sweetgeorgiayarns.com/pages/gifts. And you will see all of the gift ideas that Bridget has compiled. And she's made a whole bunch of them specifically for all different kinds of makers. So she made some gift ideas specifically for knitters, specifically for crocheters, specifically for spinners and weavers. And so she's, yes, so we've put those links up here for you as well. So the shop one, and then also the School of SweetGeorgia for gift memberships, because that often happens as well. So thank you so much to Bridget for putting those together. It's just some ideas about things that you might think of just as because it's getting to the season. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to do the secret stash reveal. And so the secret stash, like I mentioned before, secret stash is something that we started this past year, and it is a sort of a color of the month kind of club. So we create a brand new color every month. It is an opportunity for our team to sort of explore different ideas, to really push different ways of how we dye yarn, so that way we can experiment with, what would be interesting, what would work, how would we tell this color story with this technique, all sorts of things like that. And it just gives us an opportunity also to tell different stories that we have about color. And so the next color story that we have that we're sharing this month is actually one that originally we designed for August this past year. And so it was kind of related to the trip that my family and I took to London. And I talked about our London trip a couple of times on the channel as well. But we went out to London, and I was incredibly, and have been incredibly, inspired by this one particular weaving company for maybe like a decade now. And so if you followed any of my videos, you know that it's called Wallace and Sewell. They are in London. It's two weaving designers that graduated from school together, and then they started this company. They design all their own textiles, and then they are manufactured in the UK, and then distributed to the world. So they make shawls and scarves and blankets and pillows and beautiful things, but they have also been very, very instrumental in working with the London Transport to design fabric that is used as the upholstery fabric for the seats of the tube. So like all of the trains, many of the train lines feature fabric that is designed by this particular weaving design company, which I don't know why. I find it beautiful and amazing that they're hired and commissioned to make these beautiful fabrics that tell a story of what it means to be that train line. And so I'm going to show you what we did with all of that. So this is the color inspiration for this month's launch. The colorway we're calling Lizzy Line, and it is basically named after the Elizabeth line, which is the newest line. It's the newest underground train line in the system, in the London Underground system, and it launched in 2022. So it's the newest line. Very interestingly, it is the first accessible train line in the whole system. So, you know, you can get there. There's elevators. Like I remember maybe 10 years ago when we had gone to London, and you know, our son Russell was only 1, and so we had a baby stroller with us, and we had to take the stroller everywhere, and we couldn't take the stroller on many of the tube lines, like through the elevator, because there was no elevator to get to the train in many of these stations, because the stations are so old. And so very often we would just carry and walk the stroller all the way down the stairs, and then back up the stairs. And so it was a little bit more challenging. And so it was possible because there's me and my husband carrying the stroller down the stairs. But if you're just one person, or if you were in a wheelchair situation, then it would be extremely difficult to get around. And so this line, I think, is really interesting because it's this first accessible line that they've developed for the system. So that is where the color inspiration comes from. You can see the fabric that was designed for the line has these purples. It has like hits of you know, the blues. There's hits of red in there. There's some beige. There's some gray. There's like a lot of colors happening, but overall you get a sense that there's some purple, and then there's hits of red, there's hits of blue, that kind of thing. And there's definitely lots of things going on in this particular fabric, right? You have horizontal lines going back and forth, and at the same time you also have these vertical columns of that are also lines. And even within these lines, there's like smaller stripes. And there's just like a lot to look at. And a lot of it feels like it's communicating a lot of movement, like things are moving in this piece of fabric. That's at least what I see when I'm looking at this fabric. They have designed for a number of other lines as well. And so I'll just show you here. This is the Elizabeth line. This is actually a photo of me. You can see my reflection here, reflected in the window, and there's Nina, and we're sitting here. Yeah, you can see how the fabric actually looks on the seats. I think it's actually very elegant. It's colorful, and it's very distinctive of this particular line. And you can see here that they have, in the London Transport Museum, they actually have all of this merch. I was so surprised. I don't know why I was so surprised, but they had all this merch for these different train lines. So one of the lines of merch was all Elizabeth line merch. And so you can see there's a tote bag made with the fabric design. There is a blanket or a shawl that's made with that fabric. There's a pillow, and then there's socks that are made with that distinct sort of stripe design. And so that's all there. And then you can see here is another totally different line. I think this is the district line. And so totally different color, totally different stripe design, different block design, all of this kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's still very cohesive. And I just love that the city is so designed. There's so much intention behind the design of what people are going to live in every day. You get on the train, you see this fabric, it's consistent from different line to a different line. It's just, so much of it is just, I love the idea that the life around you is so well designed. So in any case, I found it all very, very inspiring. So that is basically what the color is, that's basically what the color is about. Freaky Geek, you're asking if the Elizabeth line has been around for a while. I think it only opened in 2022, so it is the newest line. And it is funny that when we flew into London and we arrived at the airport at Heathrow, the fastest line to get into London is to take the Elizabeth line. But when we arrived there, the Elizabeth line was shut down because there was malfunction. So we ended up having to take a really, really old line, which was much slower. But in any case, I'll show you the color that came out of this project. And so this is the colorway that we created that is supposed to be inspired by the fabric of that Elizabeth line fabric. And we dyed it on the mohair silk sock. And that is the reason why we kind of had to delay the delivery of this club from August, when we wanted to do it, to November, is because we were waiting for a massive new shipment of this base yarn to arrive. And so, yeah. Yeah, so that is the colorway that we created for that. And now I just want to very quickly show you a couple of projects that we made from the yarn. So let me see. You can see this is the yarn. And we did a couple of different things with it. That's the yarn. And first thing I did was I cranked socks with it, because that's what I always do. And so I have here socks that are stockinette socks. And then I have this one, which was a mock rib sock. So you can see I showed this technique a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, on a video about how to make mock rib socks. Mock rib socks are basically, they look like they're ribbing, but they're actually not ribbing. So all of these sections that have a gap in here, it's just basically where there was no stitch on the circular sock machine. And so it just leaves this gap and pulls the fabric in a little bit tighter. But you can see how colors can sort of present so differently on a small circumference, because you can see this red is kind of pooling and striping in this way diagonally at this circumference, at this particular circumference with this stitch size. By removing one of the stitches from this unit, like I'm basically knitting 3 stitches and then leaving a gap, and then 3 stitches and leaving a gap. And so the gap takes up less yarn than a stitch. And so therefore this circumference is actually much narrower. You can see that. And so it causes the color to pool completely differently, right? So that is the leg portion. It's causing the two things to pool very, very differently. And then you can see down here, maybe I can turn it this way, that when you come down past the foot here, because the foot, I put some stitches back in here. So the foot is knitting in stockinette, and then the top is knitting in this mock rib here. You can see the direction and the angle of all that pooling completely changes. So it's funny because people always ask, you look at a skein of yarn and then you wonder, like, how is this going to knit up? How does this knit up? Well, it completely depends. It depends on what circumference you chose to use, right? It depends on it depends on a lot of things. It depends on how many stitches you chose to use. And so that is kind of the difference between what might happen at a smaller size. If you chose to knit socks for kids and you made, like, I don't know, 48 stitches around or 60 stitches around versus 64 or 72 stitches around, you're going to get a very different pattern than even what I have here. So that, I think, is always really, really interesting to look at. The other thing is that Charlotte did a completely different thing. And so she took this month's fabric and she decided to weave a scarf with it. And so you can see here the scarf that she's woven. I believe she used a rigid head loom to weave this. And So it's perfectly plain weave, and just basically taking that skein of yarn that has like a splash of red color in it and then stretching it out onto the warp. You can see how the colors have distributed beautifully and really evenly. It looks fantastic. Also, the drape on this fabric is amazing. It's like absolutely amazing. So I believe Charlotte chose to use a 15 dent reed. I think we did 15 dent reed for this one. So this is a 15 dent reed with a fingering weight sock yarn in a rigid heddle loom. And the reason why we use the 15 is because we wanted to use a very, very, very fine weft yarn. And so I'm going to show you the weft yarn some more a little bit later. But basically, I think she used this color. So she used this color for weft yarn, and this is 100% silk yarn. This is a 20/2 Mulberry Silk yarn. This is the newest yarn that we are coming out with right now, and it is beautiful and perfect for making these kinds of projects, right? Like to use it as weft yarn in a sort of mixed fabric. You've got some wool in your warp, and then you use silk in the weft, and you bind it all together, and it makes for this beautiful and gorgeous piece. So I always find it super interesting. You can take one skein of yarn and you can knit it and it becomes something, or you can weave it and it becomes something completely different. And so we're always trying to give people suggestions and ideas on how to use the yarn that is created. Um, and yeah, I feel like the answer is it all depends. Depends on what you want to make, depends on how you want the colors to distribute, how you want it to look. But this project turned out fantastic. And then for fringe, she just did a sort of like she just cut the warp and made it nice and tidy. All of the ends are hem stitched here, right here. If you wanted to, you could use a fringe twister. She's hem stitched these in groups of 4. So if you wanted to, you could use a fringe twister and twist all this fringe to make it nice and even. If you don't want to, you can also leave it loose like so. Totally doable. But yeah, this is a really nice and quick and easy project. Put this on your rigid heddle loom and then weave some plain weave with a beautiful 20/2 silk weft, hand-dyed weft in there, and that will look really lovely. And I think that the reason why it works is because the color of the weft kind of blends into the background of this particular skein. And so it just overall makes it really just like muted purple overall. We wanted something that would kind of fade away into the background so that the red streaks would kind of show up a little bit more. We didn't want to obscure the red or somehow create a plaid accidentally, so we wanted that weft color to fade into the background. If you if you used the same yarn as weft, you would get sort of a plaid pattern starting to happen, right? You would see a lot of crossing of the different colors, but we wanted it mostly to be warp faced or warp dominant is the idea. Yes, beautiful. Yes, I love that. So let me show you this next one, which is this one. Yes. Okay. So we wanted to show you how much variation is between each one of these skeins as well. So Bridget took these photographs and they are absolutely lovely. You can see she's put 4 skeins together, and just to show how different each skein could appear using the dyeing technique that we used for this this collection. So yes, if you do like this particular collection, we do have extras every month that we make, and so you can go and find those in our shop. And as well, if you wanted to sign up for the next month's delivery, the deadline every month is the 15th of every month. So in order to get the December shipment of the club, you would need to order by November 15th. Yes, that's the information. That's the dates. Fantastic. And then we are finalizing December's colorway today. We're going to be talking about it actually after we do this. I'll be checking out and talking with Charlotte about what we're going to do for December. And it's coming together. I see it on Teresa's desk. It looks amazing. I really love it. It is very different from many of the things that we've created this year. And that is definitely like the whole goal is really to have something very different every month. So that way it kind of pushes our creative boundaries, hopefully pushes your creative boundaries, pushes sort of, yeah, like trying things that maybe you haven't tried before. And that allows us to sort of all grow and do more and get better with all the things that we're doing. So yeah, that is it for the November Club. Really excited to be able to share that with you guys. So I'm just checking the chat that you guys are talking about. Shawl making videos look like such a beautiful artisan style yarn. Yes. So when making a sweater, the sleeves won't match exactly, but in color only. Yes. So sometimes if you were knitting a little bit tighter, your gauge is a little bit tighter, or anything like that, then you might find that one sleeve might pool or stripe in a different way. If you don't like this kind of striping, you can also do something where you alternate ends of the same ball of yarn. So if I was hand knitting this, sometimes I will alternate between the two ends. So I wind a center pull ball and I take the end from the inside and the end from the outside. And then with every round or every 2 rounds, I just change yarns. And then that helps you break up some of the pooling that happens here if you don't like it. I don't actually mind it at all. I think it's actually a really interesting sort of design, the way that it causes this sharp line to happen. I think it's all really interesting. Fantastic. So the next thing that I wanted to share with you guys is a little bit about what is happening inside the school. So very, very excited about all of this. We mention this every time, is that we have this online school that we've been building since 2017. Right now we have over 100 different classes that you can take to learn about anything from, working from raw fleece, washing that fleece, dyeing fiber, dyeing yarn, spinning all that yarn in a number of different ways. I think the most classes we have are all in the spinning genre, and we work with a number of amazing spinning instructors, everything from fiber prep and making rolags, spinning on e-spinners, spinning with supported spindles, spinning on suspended spindles, so many things. And then also, once you've made that hand spun yarn, or if you've dyed yarn, what do you do with all that yarn? We have knitting classes and crochet classes and weaving classes and also tapestry classes. So there's a lot of things that we have been building over the past number of years. And so in this time, I am actually quite amazed. I was looking at some of the numbers recently, and it looks like we have had almost 10,000 people come through the school and learn from the classes that have been provided in the school. It is absolutely phenomenal. And so we're just so grateful to have that opportunity to create this school, and just so excited to continue to build it and continue to grow it in a way where it can be really helpful and provide just more learning and more teaching for everybody, and more access to the information that for a long time I found really difficult to get access to. So this is a great way to be able to access teachers and instructors that you might not always have the opportunity to see in real life. So really excited that we are doing this. So one of the latest things that came out of the school is this course that I'm so excited and so proud of. And so this is the course that I have been working on for almost this whole year, and really excited that it basically launched yesterday. So very pleased about all of that. And I feel like this is the course that I wanted to teach when this is the one that I envisioned in my head when we first started the School of SweetGeorgia. And it had to wait until now because I had to make sure that we had all of the other bases covered before we could do this course. And so this course is called Handpainted Warps, and it is basically all about how do you take the yarn, how do you paint color, dye the yarn, dye the warp yarn, and then put that warp onto your loom and then weave it into something. And it sounds very straightforward, but we had to learn all of the skills of how to wind a warp, how to dye with acid dyes, how to dye with fiber reactive dyes, how to dress a loom with a pre-wound warp. Everything from, either doing it by tying onto a dummy warp that you've already put onto the loom, or if you were going to, dress the loom traditionally, you have to be able to dress a loom. And then from that point on, then it's like choosing colors for weaving in for weft. So we were talking about optical color mixing. We're talking about all sorts of things in this class. And so this class is kind of a culmination of all those things. It's a review of a lot of things as well. So here's another picture of something that came out of that class. And so this is two warps that I painted, and you can see very, very subtle color changes within that one warp. So you can see that on the purple side of things, it kind of goes from purple to magenta and then back to purple. And then on the yellow side of things, it kind of goes from orange to gold and then back to orange and then yellow. And so it kind of like both sides fade in. And these are some of the things that we just had the opportunity to explore a little bit. So I'll show you a little bit more about the projects that have come out of this. But you can see here, this is the project that was shown in that photograph. So you can see kind of how it's come together. You can see a purple end, and then in the middle, it's a little bit magenta, and then it goes back to purple again. And then the gold side, again, its colors fading very slowly one into the other. And then the idea is that I put these two painted warps onto the loom by tying onto a dummy warp and then weaving it all together with this sort of twill pattern. And so this, you can see there's one weft color that was used for this. This is also, I used this weft color. This is also the 20/2 silk, the mulberry silk, using the silk as weft together with this mohair silk sock yarn. So this mohair silk sock yarn actually is the same as this sock yarn. They are the same yarn. And they're both woven, and they're both using the same kind of weft yarn, using that 20/2 silk for weft yarn. But Charlotte's scarf was woven in plain weave on a rigid heddle loom at 15 ends per inch. And then this one was woven on my Fanny counterbalance loom, which is a 4-shaft loom. And I wove it with a twill pattern. And this one was set tighter than 15 for sure, because I wanted it to be even more warp dominant than something like this. So there's so many different ways that you can play with exactly the same yarn, and you can weave with it and do completely different things. And this is why I find just like weaving is, it's going to be endless, the amount of things that you can explore and try. And so with all of the projects, I wove two versions of the same thing. So you can see here, this one is the one that I showed you earlier, and that one was woven with this color as weft. And then this one, it's the same warp, but I used a yellow color as weft. I used this one. Ta-da! So lots and lots of different things to play with and enjoy. So this is the wool project that came out of it. And then we also did a cotton project as well. So this is the cotton project that came out of that. So you can see it's a number of different warp chains, all painted in slightly different ways. And then they go onto the loom, and then they are all woven together. So that's one version of it. And whoop, this is the other version of it. Ta-da! So yes, I feel like I could spend so many more years working on just hand-painted warps, weaving different weave structures into it, so many different things. And so this is one of the things that I wanted to be able to share with everybody. Is like, this is like a multi-craftual project for me, like taking yarn, dyeing it, weaving it, playing with color, playing with optical mixing, all of that kind of stuff. I think it's all super interesting and endless. And so, yes, I'm hoping if you are also interested in weaving and also kind of playing with a little bit of dyeing, then you might also enjoy this kind of a class as well. And so that is the latest thing that has come out in the school. And it's kind of like a review of all of the other things that we've been doing in the past couple of years. Fantastic. Yes. The set, Rosalind, the set on the twill scarf, I believe was 20 ends per inch for that one. I experimented. I actually talked about it in the class. I wanted to set it at 16 originally, and then I saw it and it was too loose for what I wanted, and so I reslayed it. Now, I want to share with you guys the next thing, and I've been mentioning it a couple of times, and that is that we did come out with a new yarn for Sweet Georgia, and that is this Mulberry Silk 20/2 yarn. And so this is all entirely hand-dyed 100% silk yarn that you could use for warp or weft if you want. You could also knit it, you could hold it double, you could hold it with something else. You could hold it with a wool and then give that wool a little bit more structure, more shine, a little bit more color, lots and lots of different things. So this particular photograph is of the darker colors that we are dyeing, but we are dyeing both the Enigma color palette and the Elixir color palette. So I'm going to just show you quickly. Oh, there. They're all here. So we have all of the colors represented here right now. There's a lot, but basically, how many colors are there? I think there's like 10 colors of Elixir, and then there's 10 colors of Enigma. And so Enigma is going to be the darker of the two. So you can see here, this is Tempest and this is Stormy Night, dyed same sort of colors. They could go together and make a really beautiful monochromatic kind of project. But if you wanted like darker shades, you would go with this one, and lighter sort of mid-tone shades, you would go with this one. And so you can see this is kind of like reflected in a bunch of colors here as well. The darker and the lighter of the two. And then these ones and these ones. We tried to make sure that there was enough difference between the two colors so that you could really tell the difference. And I think that it's pretty clear which one is which. So that's those are the greens, and then there's another one. Okay, and so I believe everything is very well represented. So there's like lots and lots of gorgeous colors in here. This is one of my favorite. This is the darker version of the amber ale. Lots of beautiful things you could do with this. So 20/2 silk, if I were to set this in a warp and use this as warp, I would probably set it around 24 ends per inch for twill. But yes, we could actually use this for weft. You could use it for warp. You could use it for all sorts of different things. And so now that we have silk on our list, like 100% silk, I'm hoping to use this for more and more projects going forward. It's really pretty. And so that is that one. Nina, you're asking if there's any retailer in Germany that carries this particular yarn, the Mulberry Silk. Because it's new, we are right now sort of rolling it out to shops and things like that. So if there's a shop that you have in Germany, or if there's a shop anywhere, if you guys are listening, if there's a shop anywhere that you would like to carry our yarn, just let us know, and then we can sort of reach out to them as well. And that would be fantastic. Thank you. So that is that one. So now let's go to the biggest deal right now. And this is the thing that we're going to be working on for the next couple of weeks. And this is the new Winterful Weave Along. And so this idea is that starting on November 12th, which is Tuesday, we are going to start warping for a Weave Along project that is designed by Amanda Wood. So you can see in the photograph here, the project that was designed, it's called the Kaleidoscope Scarf, and it's a log cabin design, which is a color and weave pattern. And she wove hers on a rigid heddle loom. And so I have some of these projects to show you here. But the whole idea with this Winterful Weave Along is it is a weave along that includes rigid heddle weavers and multi-shaft weavers. It doesn't matter sort of which kind of loom you have, because this project is plain weave. Anyone with any one of these kinds of looms could participate. So you're absolutely more than welcome to come and join us as we do this. So let me just very quickly show you what the scarves look like. So Amanda designed these scarves initially so that way we could have a project for rigid heddle weavers. Look at how beautiful that is. Okay, so this is one of the versions. This is the darker version, and so you can see the colors in here. This is woven with a Party of Five mini skein set in Voyage. So it's like blues, navy blues, and sort of fading into light blues to dark blues. And then you can see that there is sort of a border happening with each one of these. Let's move that out of the way. You can see the, it's going to focus. Focus. Yeah, so you can see that there is like a dark color outlining all of these motifs or these block units. And so that dark color is charcoal. And so it's basically, yes, we have our light to dark blue and then this charcoal color as the border or the outline. In this other version, she's done sort of the opposite. She has, again, used a Party of Five mini skein set. So this one is called Tanzanite, and it kind of goes from this sort of jade green to purple. And then she's using a lighter color as the outline for this one. So this is one of the scarves. See? Like so. And this is the other. So these are the two versions that you could kind of choose from. They're all in the exact same pattern PDF. Yeah, but we want to do this kind of weave along because we have believed since the very beginning when we started the School of SweetGeorgia that we wanted to be very much equipment agnostic. We wanted to be able to celebrate weaving and celebrate a lot of these techniques without worrying about like what kind of loom you're using. So if you're going to use a rigid heddle loom, go for it. If you want to use a multi-shaft loom, go for it. If you want to use a table loom, that's fine. If you want to use a 32 shaft dobby loom, you could do that too with this. You could just weave plain weave on it. Totally fine. Whatever you want to do, that's great. It's the same idea that we had with spinning is, you know, the spinning, we've always believed spinning happens in your fingers. The spinning is in your hands. It's not in the tool that you use to make the yarn. So if you want to spin with a supported spindle or a suspended spindle or a e-spinner or a wheel, like however you want to spin, totally fine. We're talking about the yarn that is made in your hands. And it's the same idea with the weaving. It's about, you know, your beat, it's about controlling your shuttle, it's about all of those things. And the loom is just the thing that holds the threads in place. That's it. And so, yeah, use whichever loom you like. So for the Monday Weavers meeting this past week, if you were in the SOS, we have a recording of me talking about how I was looking at this rigid heddle pattern and converting it for multi-shaft looms. So I basically redrew the whole thing using my weaving software and then just set it up for weaving plain weave on 4 shafts. And what would I do in order to make that happen? And so that recording is available. If you're in the School of SweetGeorgia, you can go and watch that. But yeah, we're going to start on Tuesday, start warping up a loom for this project. And I think a number of people are, 60% of the people who have signed up so far are going to be using rigid heddle looms. And then I have a table loom downstairs that I have been meaning to use for a long time now. And so I'm going to use that loom. And it is the Ashford Brooklyn loom. It's the newest loom that they released maybe about a year or so ago. No, 2 years ago. And it's a 4-shaft loom, and it's a table loom. It's great. I set it up, I lacquered it, I did the whole thing, and then never made a single video about it. And so I'm going to use that one so that I can kind of get a more hands-on experience with that particular loom. But in any case, I'm going to use that loom for that. Yeah, if you do want to join us for this Winterful Weave Along, let me show you here. You can join at sweetgeorgiayarns.com/winterful-weave-along. Yes, so Winterful Weave Along. And so all we need is just, you know, go to that page. You can see all the information, all the details about what you need, where you find the pattern, where you can find the yarn, and then just sign up. And then we can basically it helps us know how many people are going to use a rigid heddle and how many people are going to use multi-shaft, and it's just helpful for us to know so that we can better support you and what your questions might potentially be. And then we are going to send out updates every week about, oh, here's maybe what you should consider, or this is what you should maybe look at this week. And so the first week we're going to be talking about warping. Amanda Wood has put together a number of articles about different ways of warping a rigid heddle loom. And so we have demonstrated before direct warping, but there's also an article about indirect warping that's coming up, and there's one about hybrid warping, and then there's one about winding a warp using a warping mill, a vertical warping mill. And so we talked about that as well. So that's going to come up. And then later on, I'm going to talk about things like, how to join yarn, how to change colors at the selvages and things like that. Maybe how to do some twisted fringe, how to finish your scarves once they're off the loom. So lots of things that we can talk about every step of the way. And so that is definitely, if you are interested in joining us for that, we're going to be here for that. Now, I'm just checking the chat to make sure I haven't missed anything. Yes, they do. Uh, yes. So Lydia's asking about tartans, and that is super funny because I did record a class on weaving stripes, plaids, and tartans that is going to be coming out next year. I'm very, very excited about that. I'm surprisingly interesting. Like the history of tartans was so fascinating. So I'm really, really excited to be able to share that in a class that's going to come up next year. Snow Crust Racer is asking, are you using a fingering weight yarn for the weave along? Yes. So the yarn that we are using is Tough Love Sock. It is a fingering weight merino and nylon yarn. And so because it is a knitting yarn, it does have a little bit more elasticity and bounce to it. And so we just encourage you, you can absolutely weave with this yarn. It totally works. You just have to be a little bit more careful about tension so that way your tension is consistent through your warp and as you weave it. What else is in here? Yes, Greta's answered fingering weight yarn. I've heard of making something on a loom wider than the actual machine. You can do that with all types of looms or just certain ones. So absolutely, with weaving, you can do something called double weave, where you're weaving more than one layer at the same time. And so we've actually taught this in the School of SweetGeorgia as well. So just say this is the fabric that is on your loom, and you're weaving one layer of this fabric, you can actually set it up so that way you're weaving two layers at the same time, like so. Okay, as a quick demonstration. You can set it up so that way you have your warp set up so that you can weave two layers at the same time. And so basically, rather than going back and forth with your weft on your warp, you would kind of go back and forth for one layer, and then you would access the bottom layer, and you would go back and forth on the bottom layer, and then you would weave back to the top, and you kind of go back and forth and this way and that way and this way, that way. And then when you cut it off the loom, you are able to unfold your fabric into a piece that is twice the width of what you had on the loom. So that is double weave. Yes, it depends on a whole bunch of things, but Amanda Wood, our rigid heddle instructor, did teach a class on weaving double weave using two heddles on a rigid heddle loom. And then at the same time, I taught a course about weaving double weave on a 4-shaft loom, and I did that on the shacked baby wolf loom. And so we have two classes actually that cover double weave on the School of SweetGeorgia. And actually, for my double weave class, I also did log cabin as part of my project for that double weave project. Yeah, fantastic. Yes. Yeah, double weave is absolutely fascinating. I have also seen people do a thing where you can weave 3 layers at the same time. So you could set it up so that you're weaving 3 layers, and then when you unfold it off the loom, you're getting like multiple layers happening. So many things could be done and are possible. So just going back to this, I just wanted to quickly show you the dates of things that are happening. And so on November 18th and then December 16th, we have these open Zoom meetups. These are our regular monthly multi-craftual meetups that happen on a Monday evening on Zoom. And you're more than welcome to join and participate in that. Over the past couple of months, these meetings have become really great. Like they're super lively and there's a lot of people who join and share different projects that they're working on. You can absolutely bring whatever you're working on to one of these multi-craftual meetups. And so people bring knitting, people bring weaving, people bring spinning, all sorts of things like that. But we'll probably be talking a little bit about this Winterful Weave Along as well, and help answer any questions that you might have. There's a lot of conversation that will happen inside our Discord channel for this Weave Along. And also we have a thread that's actually already very active in the School of SweetGeorgia on the community forums about this particular Weave Along. So lots and lots of places that we are going to be sort of checking and accessing to make sure that everybody's questions are answered as they go through all of this entire process. And then finally, the goal is to weave, 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 and then around middle of December, if you have a project that's finished, or even if you have progress photos, I would really, really encourage you to sort of share those. And then we would like to put together like a wrap up sort of post, a wrap up blog episode to kind of share your projects with everybody and just celebrate all of these wonderful projects that have been made. You can choose to use these yarns or use something totally different. Use hand spun, use gradient sock blanks, use whatever you already have. You can mix and match all sorts of things. I think this is just a really great way to learn this particular technique for weaving color and weave, and making sure that you're weaving a nice square graphic and that it looks nice and square. It's going to be a good experience, I think. And in terms of options for using yarn, these are the two options that Amanda originally put together for her scarves. And so these are just starting points for ideas for you. You're more than welcome to use exactly these colors or choose your own colors. Totally, totally up to you. But that is basically what was available. Yeah, fantastic. It's so great to see everybody's questions and all the comments in the chat. It's very, very helpful. Yes, and thank you so much. Greta has put the link in the chat about how to join Discord and what that is and everything like that. But yes, if you go to sweetgeorgiayarns.com/winterful-weave-along, you'll find the links to all of those places, including the Discord and where to get the pattern and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic. So that is basically all I have for today. And so these are the places where we are checking and meeting people and connecting with members in our community. So we do have this very active Discord channel that you can come and join. And we do have a dedicated sort of channel specifically for the Winterful Weave Along. Like we did last month, we had one for October. We've had one for Tour de Fleece. And there are channels that spring up based on everyone's interests. So being a multi-craftual hub, you know that the people in our community love many different kinds of crafts. And so out of all of these conversations that we've had in the past, it's been like a year, 2 years since we started the Discord. I don't even remember now. Maybe it's been 2 years. But during that time, we also started channels about like punch needle. There's definitely ones about, there's one about CSM knitting. There's one about machine knitting now. We just added one about sewing because many people want to take their handmade fabric and then sew with it. There's one on 3D printing. There's a channel specifically about 3D printing. It's fantastic. So lots and lots of fun things are happening over there. And then as well, we have our SOS forums where there's a lot of very, very deep conversation about some of these projects, some of these techniques and things like that. And if you are a member of the School of SweetGeorgia, that is basically where you can connect directly with the instructors and ask instructors questions that you've had from watching the classes. So Yeah, fantastic. And this being November, I do encourage you guys, if you are not already, you should please sign up for our email list. Bridget is working very, very hard behind the scenes to make sure that a lot of information is being sent out through the email so that everybody knows what's going on here. And there will be lots more things going on here. So I do encourage you to get on the list to find out all the updates and all the things that are being released and launched from Sweet Georgia this month and later than that. So that is basically it for today. This is another fabulous photo of our new silk yarn. This one was shot by our favorite photographer, Josh Young. And he came into the studio a couple weeks ago to take some photographs of our studio because I'll hopefully have more to share with you guys about that in coming months. But he did a wonderful, wonderful job shooting some photos for us. And so this is one of the photos. It's just a nice little still life of some of these silk yarns, which I absolutely love. This is where you guys can find us at the studio in Vancouver. We are going to be open this Saturday, which is tomorrow, for our Knit at Noon. And it's like a public, sort of open to everybody in the community, open to everybody in Vancouver, anybody who's in like locally in the area. The second Saturday of the month, you can come and visit our studio on the weekend, and it will be open. And I believe Charlotte will be here. And yeah, everybody just comes and hangs out and maybe knits a little bit in the front shop. So looking forward to that. Thank you guys so much for being here this month for this live stream. I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye for now.